Hey YouTube, SonicMTD here, aka known as Matthew Tyler DeLeo, and welcome to another exciting episode of Always Rate Reviews. This episode, I'm not going to lie, it should have come out like 2 days ago. I've been incredibly busy, and most likely, in order to make sure that this video is released during this month, I'm probably going to have to kill myself to get it done. Who needs sleep anyway, right? Welcome to media. But either way, This is a video that was edited, completely recorded. All of it was done within the span of a month while trying to maintain my social life and my full-time job. And as such, it has been a hell of a ride, and it is an amazing series. I hope you guys take a look at it, especially with the 3 movies that are going to be coming out soon. Either way, I'm not going to take up more of your time. Here's my review of Eureka 7, Pslam of Planets.
Well now, seems like this one is going to be a bit of a tough one. My job as a reviewer is to critically analyze media and effectively break down the good stuff without spoiling the entire series, or to completely dissect the bad while offering an alternative option that would have been better than what we got. The problem lies in when I, as a reviewer, let personal opinions get in the way of my judgment, which can affect the quality of my content. Eureka 7 happens to be a series that I hold very near and dear to my heart, so much so that I named my Fender Stratocaster Eureka. I caught the pilot on YTV's Bionics lineup and then proceeded to watch the entire Japanese subbed series because I couldn't wait anymore for the English stuff. Immediately after the original run, a spin-off movie was made which caused the fans to go, "Why the f*** did they do this?" And a sequel show that made fans go, why the f*** did they do this? With the announcement of 3 movies titled Eureka 7 High Evolution filling in the gaps between the original and Eureka 7 AO, I think it's time to once again examine what it was that captured my heart in the first place. So wax up your ref board, cause it's time to head back to the Gekkostate as I review Eureka 7 Pslam of Planets. Eureka 7 Pslam of Planets was launched on April 2005 and was created by Studio Bones. The series was directed by Tomoki Kyoda and written by Dai Sato, and was licensed by Funimation. The manga was released by Kadokawa Shoten and was directed by Jinsei Karoka and was drawn by Kazuma Kondo. The manga debuted after the anime, which I'm actually kind of surprised by. Eureka 7 Pslam of Planets is the story of Renton Thurston, a 14-year-old boy stuck in the military town of Balforest and dying to get out by any means necessary. Renton spends his time lifting trapar waves and daydreaming of joining the illustrious pirate group called the Gekkostate, while his grandfather Axel wants him to follow in his footsteps as a mechanic. It's at this point where Renton and his grandfather are arguing when a mechanized robot called an LFO crashes into Axel's garage and also destroys Renton's room in the process. Emerging from the cockpit is a young girl with a mysterious air and a simple request. "This little one doesn't seem to be feeling well. Can you please take a look at it for me?" Her name is Eureka. It's at this point Renton falls in love and becomes entangled in something much bigger than the small town of Balforest can ever offer. Eureka's appearance at Axel's garage seems to be much more than just a coincidence though, as Axel soon thrusts a package that contains a part to improve the Nirvash's performance. The Amata drive, which is a leftover from Renton's father, Adrock. Before things get too techno-babbly, the military shows up, forcing Eureka to make a quick escape. Renton, realizing that Eureka forgot to grab the Amata drive, takes off after her, and after nearly dying from jumping off a cliff, manages to cut through an air battle, land inside the cockpit, install the Amata drive into the compact drive, and causes Eureka to pass out and the Nirvash to fall out of the sky. Game over, right? Wrong. Renton, through sheer force of will of wanting to protect himself and Eureka, activates a devastating phenomenon called a 7 swell. It's at this point, Renton makes the decision to follow Eureka and join the Gekkostate as co-pilot of the Nirvash Type 0. If any of that sounded confusing, don't worry. There's a lot to unpack in this show, and luckily, with the 50-episode series, you're given a decent amount of time to digest it before it starts throwing more at you. The Gekkostate are a renegade group of ref boarders who were former military officers that fled after the genocide of the Vodarac people. Their leader, Holland, was even a member of the Special Operations Force tasked with keeping Eureka safe. Renton unknowingly is about to plunge headfirst into a war, and whether he likes it or not, will have to grow up and deal with disease, racial prejudice, death, betrayal, and even bloodlust. Strap in, folks, this is going to get wicked. Now, this is but a small little glimpse into the show. Frankly, it's jam-packed to the brim with world building, and I could easily fill an hour explaining all the little intricacies that make it shine. Eureka Seven is a coming-of-age tale, a love story, a debate about spirituality in a modern world, not to mention an anti-war and pro-environmental allegory. There's a lot to work with, and I will go deeper into the plot and the overall themes, but first, as I normally do, let's talk about the characters. Renton Thurston is the fresh-faced protagonist of our story. He's young, naive, and aspires to be a professional lifter just like his idol, Holland. Despite growing up without parents, he was raised by his sister and grandfather and holds both of them in high regard. A lot of his internal monologue is addressed to his sister, and as a result, gives him the impression of a young child seeking approval. Which is actually funny because Renton also likes to dig through adult magazines looking for tips for relationship advice. Eureka is essentially a character archetype that I like to refer to as the foreign exchange student. She's a blank slate that lacks a lot of societal norms that causes her to appear strange to onlookers. Eureka has adopted 3 war orphans, Mater, Maurice, and Link, which is actually kind of refreshing concept-wise. Eureka has a lack of understanding as a result of being raised by the military. Her attempts to learn what it means to be a human gives me something that I haven't seen a lot in anime, being an adoptive parent. On top of that, she attributes the ability to read inanimate objects, such as identifying if parts are broken, and also saying she can tell how the Nirvash feels. The begrudging leader of the Gekkostate is Holland. Holland always gave me the sense he'd rather be doing anything else, but that's because of the overwhelming amount of pressure and responsibility that has been thrust upon his shoulders. He pushes himself beyond his limits and oftentimes takes it out on Renton as a result. Holland also dated Renton's older sister Diane and has hang-ups about it, much to Talho's chagrin. Talho is the pilot of the Gekkostate, the bridge commander, and is also not taking any of Holland's bull. She'll chew your ear off if you say the wrong thing and then act like a total brat when she gets the upper hand. The thing I actually like about Talho is how organic her character's growth is throughout the course of the entire series. There's a few other characters in here, from Moondoggy and Gidget to Matthew and Hilde, their Dr. Misha, their gunnery operator Kengo, Holland's close friend Hap, to the editor of their magazine who looks like Che Guevara, Stoner. The minor issue I have is how the rest of the Gekkostate, such as Jobs, Woes, and Gonzi, are kind of swept under the rug. Eventually they do have episodes that show them off, but for the main part you can completely forget their role in the show. Now, there are a lot of other characters and even enemies that get fully fleshed out and, dare I say, become likable, such as Dominic, Anemone, Captain Jurgens, Ray and Charles Beams, and a handful of others. A lot of the success of this show lies on the hands of the fantastic work of the voice actors. If I were to make a decision on the subs versus dubs corner, I actually prefer the English dub to the original Japanese track. Primarily because Renton's voice actor, Yuko Sanpei, is obviously a woman in the Japanese compared to Johnny Youngbosch, who seems to have a habit in showing up in things that I like. But still, tip of the cap to everybody on both ends of the cultural divide for their amazing work. So I've talked about the characters, it's now time to jump into the technical stuff. Eureka 7 does a good job in terms of background and animation quality. The battle animations are crisp and just bleed color. However, I did notice that when the show occasionally goes for wide shots, the character quality drops so significantly, it took me out of the experience, as backgrounds are beautiful while the characters are coming across as very blocky. The music of Eureka 7 is beautifully crafted. The soundtrack was created by Naoki Sato, and the use of symphonic orchestras and rave-style electronic tracks creates a nice mix for this futuristic shonen anime. The tracks are not overbearing, and it adds just the right amount of complexity to enhance the scene. The first 2 opening and closing themes pull you into the show, giving it a Jamiroquai future disco odyssey. Note to self, trademark that phrase. The third opening, which features Tayo no Manaka-e by Bivachi, falls completely on its face. The song isn't horrible, but paired up with completely uninspired visuals makes you want to skip it entirely. Imagine that the intro to a show might be the very first thing someone is exposed to about the series. The first impression can dictate your entire opinion about something, which is why I'm incredibly disappointed with what was presented. And the outro isn't much better, as Tip Tap Tips by Holly Collie paired with shots of female characters doing things like putting on clothes, eating an entire tub of ice cream, calisthenics, and showering with their clothes on doesn't match the tone of anything remotely close to what we've just watched. If it was a full-on romance, slice-of-life anime, or if the other opening and closing themes matched the style of this one, it wouldn't be that much of a problem, but both the intro and the outro come across as orange juice and toothpaste when partnered up against Days by Flow, Himitsukichi by Koze Takeda, Shonen Heart by Homemade Kazuku, and Fly Away by Asami Izawa. Luckily, the show recovers a bit by the fourth opening, however the music, well, how out of place do you think your anime theme is when the track Sakura by Nergalus has Amazing Grace in the background? Meanwhile, Canvas by Coulon is not paired well with the imagery of war that is used. They're both better than the third, but not by much, which is rather unfortunate. Now it's time to jump back into the ongoing themes and things I've noticed while watching Eureka 7. I've watched this series multiple times over the course of my life, originally starting the series when I was 14, just like Renton. But there lies a bunch of subtext that I never really understood until I rewatched it multiple times. One of the most surreal experiences happens with the appearance of the Kute-class Corallian, a giant wind cocoon that causes Eureka, Renton, and Anemone to all occupy the same consciousness. It wasn't until I started rewatching it for this review that I noticed the characters were still dealing with the effects of a shared consciousness days later. Also noticing a clever little reference to Danny Boyle's Trainspotting involving both characters named Renton having to deal with the surreal experience of swimming through a toilet filled with insane oceanic amounts of water. Still no proof that Renton Thurston had a heroin addiction though. Now I've mentioned before that Eureka 7 is a coming-of-age tale showing Renton's growth as a character from naive child to a young adult. He ends up leaving the Gekkostate to go on a journey to discover himself and take in the world around him. I absolutely love these episodes as they help flesh out the world. Also, one of Eureka 7's major themes is the concept of non-biological family, that you can make your own family out of those that you care about and trust. This showed up multiple times as Renton makes a start in the Gekkostate to eventually meeting Ray and Charles Beams, and when he actually comes back for Eureka. Speaking of Ray and Charles Beams, Renton ends up getting adopted by two freelance mercenaries with a grudge against Holland and Eureka. Without spoiling the outcome, the tension and the tragedy is amazing. As someone who's gotten to experience that kind of madness firsthand, that hits me where I live. So, can anyone explain to me Japan's fascination with shoehorning soccer into a show that really doesn't need it? Right before the final battle, the entire Gekkostate plays a match of soccer to work on their teamwork. This might be valid filler if it was at the beginning of the series where Renton is acting like a hot-headed little shit, because he totally does that after the Kute-class Corallian. You just don't do it when Renton has gone through 9/10 of his character arc. In order to fully utilize the Amata drive, Renton and Eureka's brainwaves have to be in perfect sync. When you put it in this late in the game, it feels clunky and forced. It's actually kind of surprising, especially since subjects that are way more complex are handled masterfully. Just take the representation of the Vodarac people, for instance. The Vodarac are a group of people dressed in ceremonial robes and are very akin to, say, Buddhism, Hinduism, and with some minor sprinklings of the Muslim faith in it. They wish to communicate with the earth itself and achieve a state of enlightenment where they are one with all things. However, there are splinter factions within the group who have taken to carrying rifles. The rest of society views them as terrorists, and despite the fact that it's just a small radical faction, the military routinely sets up attacks and bombing runs where anyone who's unlucky gets slaughtered. And when did this anime come out? When did the occupation of Iraq start? Yeah, that seems about right. One thing I want to mention is how Eureka 7 kind of has a slow build. When episode 26, Morning Glory, hits, everything ramps up, but if you're not the type of person to appreciate a slow build, this show might not appeal to you, which, hey, it's alright. You got a different opinion, and I respect it. It may not be the right opinion, but you do you. Eureka 7 is by no means a perfect anime. There are minor mistakes that can take you out of the experience, but as a whole, it's a masterpiece. This is my fourth full run-through of the show, and I still cry during key points. It's so nice, I bought the box set twice. There's so many things that could have gone so horribly wrong with the show, and yet it manages to not get tangled up in its own pretentiousness. So yeah, you should definitely watch it. I'm SonicMTD, and I really hope the new movies don't suck.
Hey everybody, SonicMTD here. Thank you so much for catching the 8th episode of Always Right Reviews. Holy crow, we are almost done my first season. It goes without saying, though, that I am going to be taking this coming month off in order to rest, recoup, and also get your opinions on how the series is doing. Please be sure to like and subscribe this video and leave me a comment in the comments down below. Also, in the description is the affiliates that I run with, such as the lovely people that are at Nerds Unlimited, which are letting me use their studio right now. And, of course, my brief little stint where I'm a guest with What to Play Gaming over with Sneaky Sam and Medium Mike, as they basically find the weirdest playthroughs ever when it comes to video games. Up here, you're going to see a sort of what YouTube wants you to watch video. I have no clue what it's going to be, but hopefully it's something that I've done that you will enjoy. And down here is going to be a playlist of every single video that is associated with Always Right Reviews. If this is your first video tuning in, I definitely recommend that you check out the other 7. It has been a hell of a trip. I am not going to take up any more of your time. My name is SonicMTD. Arigato gozaimasu, and later days.